Folks, here we are, another video from Sam. Venus in the fog, sacred love, spiritual confusion. We have quite a bit of this Venus energy right now. I'm going to be talking about those things today. You see, we have Venus join Saturn within about a degree, Mercury retrograde, Rahu very close by, as it says here, romantic fear, fantasy, illusion, and devotion. What are we doing here? So Venus is incredibly important in all of our interactions, all of our agreements. And before I dive in, I do want to just ask people, recommend if you aren't a subscriber, you know, most of the people who watch the video aren't subscribers, but it's about 30% are. So please get notified of upcoming videos like this as a subscriber, and leave a positive comment if this helps you, because, you know, that helps the algorithm and lets me know that it's not just critics who comment. So anyway, we have this very powerful Venus shift that's been happening. You see Venus is also exchanging with Jupiter. Venus is here in Pisces, Jupiter is here in Taurus. They're going to be in this exchange, and Jupiter is going to be in Pisces until, well, Jupiter and Venus will exchange until May 15th when Jupiter moves into Gemini, but then Venus is going to be in Pisces almost until June. So this is a long cycle for the next couple months. We're still working through this concept of this elevated Venus, exalted Venus, which is very much a placement of devotion in the sign of Pisces, where we're looking for beauty and joy and love in transcendent places. Again, like devotion to God, devotion to Guru's grace, and gratitude for the beauty and joy of life. You can see this is Goddess Lakshmi here, who is an embodiment of Venus in the Vedic system. You also see we have Mercury here, Saturn, Rahu are all making it a bit of an interesting mix, because Venus is the part of us that wants to love and be devoted to all of it and to find the beauty and joy in all things. And that beauty and joy shows up in the form of our agreements that we make. Because it's one thing to say, oh, everything is so beautiful, and then as soon as we want to share beauty with someone and they don't share it back, or it doesn't feel good anymore and they want to do this, then all of a sudden our beauty and love of the person and it kind of goes out the window, as it should, because we're filtering Venus energy in that context through our limited awareness and limited understanding. So this is why when Venus goes into Pisces, Pisces is an expansive sign that is literally where we're trying to expand beyond just the limited details of the world, which is Virgo, opposite of Virgo. And in fact, dissolve all of those disparate details that keep us disconnected from each other. And again, that's a very interesting thing to say and a very high standard, but day to day, we're down here on Earth dealing with each other, making agreements, having negotiations where we're trying to have mutual respect for each other. And in many ways, Venus is navigating and legislating very tangible agreements, like, for example, romantic agreements, where there's physical attraction, there's, you know, sexual exchange and you know, emotional, intellectual exchange where we want to feel appreciated. But then even things like business agreements where there's money and tangible resources. So ultimately, Venus also has to do with value and how much we value others and ourselves, and what we will do in order to get that value. Because anybody, you know, many times when I do readings and people are like, when am I going to have my next relationship? When do you see I'm going to have the next partner and what it, you know, whatever it is. And I have to remind them that you not having a partner is as much your decision and your mind at this time as it is everything else. And when I was about to say your karma, but your karma makes it sound like karma is something external. It's not. Your karma is your mind and how you are seeing things at a particular time and how much you're willing to accommodate another person to bring them into your life at this time. That's really what karma is. Because again, just to be really literal, I'm not in a relationship right now. I could be if I wanted, not because I'm such a, catch, but all I would need to do is like lower every standard I have, and I could be in a relationship I could find a relationship. I could have a partnership. I don't have one now because all the standards that I have aren't being met. And again, the older we get, and particularly the more we get on like a spiritual path and this kind of stuff, our standards get much more narrow. And so we wind up not having relationships, not because we can't, or that the universe isn't giving it to us, like, dispensing candy. And again, many times people think of astrology this way, like my job as an astrologer is to tell someone when God is going to dispense the candy that they want. Well, tell me when it's going to happen. It might not ever happen again, but it's not because the universe isn't dispensing the candy you want. It's because maybe your nature is actually not to put it out there, because it takes work. It takes Venus work first. First, we have to really want that connection. Then we have to be willing to try to make someone else happy as well. Again, these are the kinds of things that wind up stopping us. We have to have certain standards, but we all have to maybe lower our standards, our perfect standards a little bit, because it's not going to be the perfect thing we imagine, but a person might be close enough. And the things where they're not within our standards, maybe we think we can work with that, even though it's not the most perfect thing I would ever imagine. And so this is the more realistic thing that happens. And so again, I'm talking about it like this because Venus in Pisces is this very high standards. And many times we live in the world of our projection and our standards, and we just get disappointed because no one's living up to my standards. So when am I going to find the perfect person who's going to meet my standards, so to speak? But again, it doesn't really work like that. That's not realistic. What's more realistic is that we find someone that we like, and then very organically, some kind of attraction starts to develop. And then we have to see where our values and our standards come into play then. Because once we start getting attracted to someone, sexual attraction, physical attraction, and we like them and all this, then we start to notice, yeah, but they're this and they're that, and they think this and they're doing that. Can I live with that? And many times we're like, yeah, I can, because I want the connection more than I want to uphold that standard right now, because that standard is some philosophical thing. Maybe they drink a little too much. Maybe he watches sports too much. He plays video games a little too much, but he's really cute. And then we start looking for reasons to get involved, which is okay. I'm not criticizing it. I'm saying, but we saw the things that we may had a problem with, and we think maybe we can just try to live with that because we want connection. So again, I'm saying this to you very intentionally because this is really the way Venus works. This is the way our attraction works, is where we want the connection. So in wanting the connection and having the desire, we start to slide on certain standards, but we have to make sure that they're standards that we don't care about as much and that they're not hardcore values and principles, because that's where it starts to get difficult. Eventually, certain standards, like maybe they do too much of that or whatever, those are things we can tolerate because, again, they aren't hurting us. But then certain things we know we're not going to be able to live with, certain lifestyle choices. Like with me, because I've been, I'm clean. I don't drink. I don't do any drugs, including weed or anything. It's not a judgment of what other people want to do. Oh, a couple glasses of wine. There's nothing wrong with that. Da, 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 and all. And all of that's true. It's not a judgment, but it is a standard for me. And again, that narrows the field enormously because most people, even quote spiritual people, or people who call themselves spiritual people, they do a little bit of drinking. They might get high sometime. They might do this or that. That's one major thing. And there are other things, certain ideas and values that I hold dear. And plus, I also just can tell where I'm at in my life right now, that something that's not in alignment, I've lived enough to know that it's not worth getting into it because there's going to be too many misdirections. And I'd rather avoid that than to get in there and then just have the other person and then just fall short of their projections. Like, for example, if I see someone is projecting all over me, oh, you're this, you're that. I have to see that there's something realistic here, because otherwise I also know that's going to crash. Not because of anything I did, but because they're not really seeing me. They're projecting something onto me that I know I'm not going to live up to, because no one can live up to that projection. So again, that's another just standard I have. How realistic is this person just in general? So again, these aren't judgments, but if those kinds of things are there and there's attraction or whatever, but there's things that are like, okay, well, she's, has these kind of views and these ideas. I'm not really crazy about that, but whatever. I don't, then I'm there, right? Then I'm okay, because I'm very open, right? But those other things that I talked about are principles that I won't slide on. Again, not because it means they're a bad person, but because these are no compromise zones. And I know those no compromise zones within myself very well now, right? So I'm saying this because everyone who is like, when am I going to get my next relationship, whatever, I kind of have to remind them of these kinds of things, that you're generating the boundaries. Again, I could have relationships. I could just not pay attention to those things. Just like people out there who are looking like, when am I going to have the next relationship? And when is astrology going to give it to me? Is it my karma? Blah, blah, blah. Your karma is coming through your mind. You don't have to complicate it so much either. When I'm looking at someone's chart and seeing their karma overall and at a particular moment in time, I'm basically reading your mind. I'm seeing what your standards are, how difficult it is for you to want to try to do that, how much you enjoy doing that, whether you're at a moment in time right now where you are going to put forth the time that's an effort that's going to bring that into your life. So these are all things that really bring the Venus equation into focus. And right now, again, with Venus going through Pisces, where there's a lot of illusion around these things, there's also a great time for us to ponder and notice and elevate and learn about these things. Because again, Venus is exchanging with Jupiter in Taurus. Again, it's also very close to Saturn. And it's going to station right next to Saturn and kind of stop there. Again, Venus, Saturn are going to be within a degree for quite a while. And Saturn is that reality check. So Saturn's going to be bringing that reality check onto Venus. And I did want to also let people know that I have these readings that I'm doing, and I've been doing these things for quite a while, where you can go to relationshipastrology.net. This is a 30-minute relationship tune-up where I talk about your tendencies in relationships. I look at your relationship potentials overall. That includes Venus. That includes your 7th house ruler, because that's the domain of relationships. Your 7th house ruler is a different planet usually than Venus, unless you're ruled by Mars. For example, I'm Gemini, so Venus is still the ruler, the karaka or indicator, but Jupiter is my 7th house ruler. So I look at those things in your chart, how they're oriented, and let you know your tendencies. Because if you notice, I'm talking mostly about your tendencies. And most of our relationships, in fact, all of our relationships, the thing they really have in common is you. What all your partners have in common, partners, business partners, and all agreements, what they have in common is you. And what are your tendencies? So again, that's if you're interested in that, you can go to that website, relationshiptruth.net. There'll be a link below the video, and get that 30-minute assessment. Incredibly valuable to know your nature in relationships, not just when am I going to find the person who, and by the way, good compatibility is going to be good compatibility because of the things I also already mentioned. How well you identify those things and are willing to be alone rather than uphold those boundaries. And which no compromise zones are you sliding on a little bit here? Because again, it gets very hard to hold them up, particularly when there's sexual attraction or physical, or they remind us of, our parent or whatever. And again, many times with women, it's something more emotionally comforting and familiar and trust. With men, it's often a little bit more physical or sexual or whatever, but it goes both ways, and it's a lot of changing. And again, this is actually the moon and Venus are the two main indicators. I also wanted to let you know about a free ebook that I have that you can download on Venus and this whole shift and transit. The ebook talks about Venus in great detail. It's actually from my book. And I also talk about Venus, evolutionary process, also the signs ruled by Venus, which are Taurus and Libra, and also the nakshatras ruled by Venus. So I'll also have a link down there for that free ebook. I think you'll really like it. And again, you can just check it out. It's also a flip book, so you can download it on your phone and look at it very easily. So you can check that out as well. So again, like we're saying here, this is really a time where we're all evaluating these things. And again, I'm not saying you should be doing it, or it is happening. This is why all of your agreements, and again, this is why I like to also put things in a larger context. Agreements. What makes relationships work are also what makes business relationships work and other partnerships work. Again, one of the things that I hit on there, which is even like in a good business agreement, you have to be willing to walk away. You have to know what you want, the price you're willing to pay for it, and know that if it's not met, then you can walk away, that you can leave it. See, this is why one of the most important things in relationship agreements and in all type of relationships is you have to be able to live without it and be alone and not be desperately clutching to that thing as if this is going to save me. Right? Again, I told you when I was looking at like my standards or whatever, I love to share and be with someone who loves to receive and share. But I've seen over the years, when I see someone is too desperate to have a connection, I'm like, oh, this person looks like they have a hard time being alone. So they're going to get involved with me. And it's going to be like, and I'm not afraid of being totally enmeshed with someone. But I also know that if their whole identity is going to revolve around what I say or what I think or my approval or everything I do that they don't like is going to destroy and crash their world or something, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. They would have a hard time, because those boundaries aren't very strong. So again, just like in a business agreement or a romantic partnership, and again, it might sound cold or too intellectual. Notice that, again, we can love everyone, but good agreements, a good relationship is actually because we can talk to the other person. We respect the other person's autonomy. And again, we want our autonomy respected as well. Even like the thing I just told you, like you can relate when I said someone whose whole identity revolves around my approval. Nobody wants that. Again, this is one of the biggest mistakes men make when they approach women often. Is they like a woman and they're so like, oh, you're so blah, 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 blah. And women are like, okay, back off. And to a lot of men, when they don't understand it, they think it's a woman playing games or whatever. They're not playing games. They're like going, okay, you're too over the top there, brother. Okay. Because it comes off because that they're going to then want to like smother you or they're afraid of that. Well, men feel the same way. At least they should. Anyone with maturity should feel that way, should notice that. And again, this is also the thing I tell people when they're looking for that next relationship. And I'll say, look, the reason you're not in that next relationship right now is because you are working on yourself. You are measuring what it would mean to get into an agreement with another person in relationship to what it would mean to give up your autonomy. So it's your choice. You are the one choosing to not have a connection right now, because the contrast between putting in the energy to work out some agreement or to put yourself out there into this thing isn't high enough for you to give up your autonomy right now. Nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything exists in contrast to its opposite. A relationship exists in contrast to not having one. So again, these are all very important questions, and we're seeing them now through this kind of, as it says, Venus in the fog, sacred love, spiritual confusion. Again, and the stakes are very high. So this is why also even this video is to kind of bring things down to a kind of rational level that's not so charged, because we're very charged up right now. The soulmate fantasy, that this thing, that thing, and why don't I have the thing? We can either be kind of longing for something. Many times, again, we're longing for the soulmate fantasy, and then we will project that onto someone who we think fits that because we've been longing for it, but then all the person does is disappoint us. And then we've been disappointed so much, like Venus, Saturn is like, I'll never trust again. I'm just doing, that can be hyper, polarizing right now as well. Mercury retrograde is, how do we communicate about this? What does it mean? So these are very charged times around this Venus, and they're going to be going for a while. And that's why I talked about this 30-minute assessment. Because again, this cycle started at the end, this transit started at the end of January. And it was been exchanged with Jupiter since the end of January. So again, we're now April 6th. We're 2.5 months into this already. And we got another month and a half or so to go. We got to almost June for Venus to keep going through that cycle, going through that sign of Pisces. So again, whether you get that 30-minute assessment or not, it is a good time also, like I said, to get this ebook. It's free. You can go there and register. I'll have the link below, as I said, and see if getting greater insight into Venus is also something that you want, because I talk about, again, like the evolutionary process, how we evolve through our senses to our mind and emotions into that spiritual connection, how it's related to the signs of Taurus and Libra, right? Masculine and feminine energies, if you have any planets there, or know people who do. And then also like the nakshatras, if you have planets in Venus's nakshatras, that's also very impactful. So again, I hope this was helpful for you, and that you take me up on one of those offers.
Every person that you have a relationship has one thing in common: you. If you want to really understand your connections and your relationships and your agreements that you make with others, the first place to start is Venus. And right now in April 2025, with Venus in Pisces in its exalted sign, but also joined Rahu, the North Node, and Saturn and Mercury, also in an exchange with Jupiter, this Venus energy is very active right now. And I'm sure you've noticed how you're reevaluating the agreements that you make, how you might give up too much ground in the agreement and then have to fight to try to get it back, and then feel very unbalanced and whatnot. I am offering, and I have been offering for years, relationship assessments where I start with Venus, and then I also look at your seventh house ruler. I'll look at your current relationship or a relationship that you want me to discuss, and I'll evaluate these things, and especially your place in the partnerships. Because like I say, all relationships have you as a common denominator, and most of the time people overlook this part: your capacities, your projections, your illusions, and how to really understand those things, and also the type of partnerships that you have. And if you want me to look at a specific one, I'll do that as well. But there's never been a better time than right now with Venus exalted, but feeling this kind of pressure to get that type of look. So if you want to do that, I do have a discount on these readings right now. So check it out, and I hope to help you with this very soon. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses: Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the Astroved certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.